This is Undaunted.Life, a man's podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Thompson. Let's get into it. For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. That is Psalm 139, verses 13 and 14. Guys, thank you so much for being on the show today. We're doing another solo episode. Can you believe it? 2 solo episodes, 2 weeks in a row. It's incredible. I know. But before we get to that, Church 1122 Men's Conference, you've heard me talk about that. Jacksonville, Florida, October the 17th and 18th. The speakers are Joby Martin, Jeff Foxworthy, Willie Robertson, John Tyson, Brian Laritz, and yours truly. A lot of you have been asking when I'm going to be speaking. I am actually speaking on the morning of the 18th. So make sure you come to the entire conference. But if you're a huge me fan, I guess, make make sure that you come on Saturday morning because I will be doing a couple of sessions that morning. This is definitely going to sell out. Guys, get your tickets, pack your bags, make yourself available to come out there and hang out with me and the rest of that crew. It'd be great to meet you guys. Again, I always want to say that we're so thankful for our donors. We are a donation-based ministry. If we don't have donors like you, we can't pull off anything that we do. Undaunted.Life/donate. If you have not left us a 5-star review, right? Not 4 stars, not 2 stars, but a 5-star review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, please do that. But guys, today we are continuing the clean out, right? That's the clean out of the quick hitters. Over the next couple weeks, I'll be cleaning out my entire backlog before we get into another big run of interviews. But the first section is going to be about dumb and cowardly Christian leaders. So we have Pastor Josh Buice getting caught using burner accounts to talk trash about other Christian leaders. Pacifist, social justice warrior, and left-wing activist Shane Claiborne being arrested. Then we have an abortion section. Shocking data showing the abortion pill is incredibly dangerous for the women that take it. The French scientist that invented the abortion pill dying at age 98. A teenager being sentenced to 35 years in prison for slitting the throat of her newborn son after a secret birth. An old clip of a TV show going viral for showing the callous evil of many women that get abortions. Then we have a short Pride Month section here. Disney continuing to signal that they hate your values, but will take your money. Target pretending to be patriotic as opposed to worshiping at the altar of the LGBTQ plus community. And then we got just another run of quick hitters here. Me being even further validated and vindicated with the Imane Khelif boxing controversy. My state of Oklahoma, their new law allowing for the death penalty for first-time child sex offenders. President Trump making nice with a bona fide terrorist. Finally, settling the whole 100 men versus one gorilla thing. I'm going to give you the best and most complete answer on that. And guys, if you stick with me all the way to the end, because it's a long show, we got a lot to cover. There's going to be a very M. Night Shyamalan ending to today's episode. And so for those of you that just have ants in your pants and just move on, you're going to miss it. I'm telling you, you're going to want to hang on to the end. But before we get into the main topic for today, just wanted to remind you guys that last year, we announced the launch of our new discipleship coaching program called Dominion. We did an entire episode on it last week, getting into all the details, but we're basically letting you know that applications as of last week for teams 4 and beyond, they went live. They're ready to go. We got a lot of applications in, but guys, we do have a team standing by that's ready to go to take those applications. Essentially, you're a guy, you're struggling in one or many ways that we've all kind of elucidated at different times. You're struggling with being spiritually, mentally, and physically resilient. You know you don't have anyone in your foxhole. You know you're missing the mark, but you don't know how you can get back on the best side of the ledger. So I created the Dominion program, which you guys basically demanded, which provides a plan to address those issues, help you create that community you need, and then call you to action, okay? So if you seize the process and go through our 6-month discipleship coaching program, your overall godly manliness will go up considerably. You will learn how to take dominion on the world around you. You're going to be a better father, better husband, better worker, better business owner. It's basically a guarantee if you really take the program seriously. And if you don't get into a program like mine, then you'll likely kind of stay stuck in your perpetual state of malaise. You're not going to really develop as the godly man that you want to develop into, and it'll certainly lead to some bitterness and regret later. But before we move on with today's episode, I did a short chat with James Sparrow. So James Sparrow is a member of Dominion Team 1. So let's actually go to that interview here. All right, we've got James Sparrow from Team 1 here, and so we're only just going to do a couple of questions here. But first of all, kind of give us an establishment thing. So how old are you? What is your retirement job versus your job that you do now, and where do you live?
I'm 54 years old. I live in Wasilla, Alaska. I'm retired Air Force colonel, spent 30 years in the Air Force, and now I fly for UPS as a pilot.
Okay, very good. Well, yeah, airplanes scare me. I don't know why, but hey, I don't guess we were built to fly through the air, but this is apparently just your everyday life. But I wanted to ask you, just as a quick aside here in this episode, I wanted to ask you about one of the early aha moments that you had during one of our very earliest interactions, where we were talking about specifically, your testimony and how that relates to how you were brought up, and then kind of what we talked through and kind of what you realized. So go ahead and tell that story if you would.
Yeah, of course. And it definitely was an aha moment. I grew up, my dad was a Southern Baptist minister. So I grew up in the church, Sunday morning, Sunday evening, Wednesday night, vacation Bible school, all that stuff. Very young in South Carolina, at the church most of the time, it felt like. But so I was saved at a very young age, 7 or 8. I don't know the exact date, somewhere in that ballpark. So I've always been kind of my testimony. I've always seen people like give dramatic testimonies of how their life just changed night and day, like they were a drug user, an addict, or something like that, and they were saved as an adult. And it's like a big black and white change in their lifestyle and their relationship with the Lord. In my case, I always struggled with the fact that I was saved so young, and so I didn't really have that black and white moment where there was this major. It's major to God, right? But it's not. It wasn't a major change in my life, because then I was saved so young, and then I grew up. I grew up, right? And so, there was nothing. There was no seminal moment in my mind, and so I always struggled with that. And so we had a discussion early on about that fact. I brought it up because it has, bothered me quite a bit throughout my adult years. And one of the things we kind of settled on was maybe it's okay to have a boring testimony, quote unquote, because one, think about all the things that I would have probably done had I not been saved at a young age. Of course, I still sin. We all sin. It still indwells within us, but the Holy Spirit's there to counter it. But, what really hit me harder was when you brought up, because based on my biography and our discussions, I have a grown son who's married. I have 2 granddaughters, 7 and 5. You brought up the fact that would I want my granddaughters to have a boring testimony or something dramatic? And it really it just resounded with me. It just struck me like, oh yeah, boring would be good. I don't want my granddaughters having a dramatic testimony, and hence it's also not a bad thing that I don't have a dramatic testimony. And so it really was. It was a very eye-opening moment for me to kind of hear that and think that through, and it's really resounded with me since.
Well, I mean, it's a story that I've told on the show, and I've told to a lot of people. And James, to be honest with you, you and I going through that discussion has helped so many other people that have
That's
been in a
awesome.
similar place to you, to where they don't have that crazy story and so there I was with my M4 and I'm bleeding out, and like they just don't have that
Right.
story. And so they
Yeah.
felt like they were lesser than in the kingdom of God. And, through the Dominion program and through some of our discussions, we were able to kind of work through that. But before we let you go, just one quick question I'll sneak in there on you. There are guys that are on the fence about whether or not to apply or whether or not to jump and to sign up for this program. And you have a pretty awesome quote that you've said whenever we got together here in Oklahoma earlier this year. So tell me a little bit about what you would say to those guys that are on the fence right now.
Yeah, I would say that the fence is not a good place to be because the devil owns the fence. If you're indecisive and trying to make that decision, you're not making any progress. So get off the fence, make the decision, because the devil owns it. I'll have to admit that I didn't come up with that quote, but through a lot of research, I don't know who did, but it's a fact.
It's okay. In the age of the internet, you say the quote, and if you're the last person to have said it, that means it's yours from now on. Again, guys, Undaunted.Life/Dominion, Undaunted.Life/Dominion. Get your applications in. We're getting people in the programs right now. James, thanks again for coming on.
You bet.
There you go, guys. I mean, James is such a tremendously impressive human being, and I'm just so thankful that he was part of Team One, and he's obviously gotten a tremendous amount of value out of it as well. Again, the applications are live. You can just go to a link here in the show notes for today's episode, or you can just go to Undaunted.Life/Dominion, Undaunted.Life/Dominion. It's not a very long application. We just need to get an idea of who you are. If we like your application, you will get a call for an interview, and we've got a team standing by that's ready to look at the interviews and ready to look at the applications. So do not wait. Put in your application. The deadline for applications is Monday, June the 30th at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, but do not wait that long. But I do want to address one quick thing. I keep saying that we're going to get into the main topic, and we will. Just be patient. Especially if you're listening to this at 2x speed. You're just buzzing right through this anyway, so good on you. But there have been some people that have gone through the application process, and then they get to the interview, and the program is explained to them, because some people are like sending me DMs and all that, like, can you explain the program to me? It's like, no, you really need to have it explained to you in its totality, or it's not really going to make sense. But there are people that are kind of balking at the size of the investment of time, effort, and capital that we expect to be part of this program. Okay, so I don't know which one it is. Maybe it's the, the personal, like, financial capital that they're worried about, or man, why are we going to have to put in this much time or effort over the next 6 months? Can't you just launch an app that I'm never going to use? Those types of things. So let me put it this way. Let's say you were in the market for a Chevy Silverado. Are you going to walk over to the Lamborghini dealership and complain to those people about the features and benefits and investment required to own one of those vehicles? Well, no. Like, you won't. I mean, you're in the market for a Silverado, and you go over there and you see a Lamborghini. Like, this is just not the same thing. That's not for you, right? You couldn't have it even if you wanted it, right? If this program is not a fit for you, then by definition, you are not the target audience. Okay? I'm doing this program for men who will take it seriously and have the ability to invest a significant amount of their personal time, effort, and capital into the program. And we're not going to sit here and apologize for having an incredibly high standard for the men that we accept into the program. Because with the podcast, I'm giving this to you guys for free. Obviously, we're working our way to 800 episodes, and all those things have been for free for your own edification and your own development. But I just can't give away my personal individual time, take that away from my family, take that away from my training, take that away from my business or whatever, to people that aren't going to take the investment seriously. And guys, you know how it is. If you want coaching from some random person on YouTube that doesn't know you and you have no interaction with, that's free. But if you want that individual person to coach you, that's not free. Right? Like, you're paying somebody. All of us trade our time and talent for money, and there is a requirement whenever you're making that trade. So, and you guys already know, when you get something for cheap or for free, you treat it cheaply. You just don't value it, okay? So to any of you that are just like, why in the world would Kyle charge money for this program? It's because the program costs money. Right? Well, what is your best case scenario for reaching out to complain about the fact that we're charging for it, right? I just don't understand people like that. So www.undaunted.life/Dominion, guys, go and put in your applications. But today we need to start off by talking about N.T. Wright. So I'm not sure if I've ever mentioned him on the show before, but he is a very popular New Testament scholar. He has a big focus on the Apostle Paul. He's also a bishop of Durham, so that's a part of the Anglican Church, the Anglican tradition. He's the author of over 70 books, and I would say, for all intents and purposes, the man has been a net positive for Christianity because of his totality of his life's work. He's done a lot of things in this space. And even saying that, he does have some thoughts and philosophies that I don't quite agree with. So he's a proponent of what's called NPP. That's New Perspective on Paul. So some of the controversial ideas is, justification is not primarily about being declared, righteous, right, before God in a courtroom sense, but more about a covenant membership who belongs to God's family. Righteousness of God refers to God's covenant faithfulness, not a moral righteousness imputed to the believer. Works of the law are boundary markers, kind of like, the circumcision or dietary laws, not good works in general. And, a lot of people object to that because he's just kind of undermining a lot of things like penal substitution, justification by faith alone, the imputation of Christ's righteousness. So, people like D.A. Carson and R.C. Sproul and John Piper have come out against some of the things that N.T. Wright has said. I think John MacArthur even called him N.T. Right or N.T. wrong at one point. And on the atonement view, he's basically just kind of dismissive of penal substitutionary atonement from an eschatological point. He reinterprets many end times texts and past events. So I'm not saying he's without his warts or without his philosophies that are just kind of a little bit strange. So again, some of this I can disagree with him on, right? But many of it can just be lumped into the agree to disagree category, or we couldn't possibly know category. But he's made some statements about abortion recently that I find absolutely abhorrent and completely out of step with a biblical ethic on life. So So N.T. Wright does a show on Premiere UK. It's called Ask N.T. Wright Anything. That's the same organization that Justin Brierley used to have a show on, where people can just send in questions and he'll ask them. They can be biblically based questions, cultural questions, whatever. But in this episode, he was asked about certain situations where abortion would be okay, right? So what are those hard cases, or what are those times when abortion is acceptable or morally okay? So as a bishop and Christian leader, this is actually a very, very easy question to answer, or at least it should be, because I teach people to answer the question in a few steps, okay? The first step is just start with the pro-life argument. The pro-life argument is incredibly simple, and we all just need to memorize it. Part 1, abortion intentionally and directly kills innocent human life. Part 2, it is always wrong to intentionally and directly kill innocent human life. Period. That's the pro-life argument. Abortion intentionally and directly kills innocent human life. It is always wrong to intentionally and directly kill innocent human life. Like, this isn't that hard. And the next step is make it a gospel plea. I mean, I start out my presentations on abortion with Romans 8:1. There's therefore now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. Okay? So if you've had an abortion, that doesn't mean you can't be saved. It just is an example of your depravity, your flavor of depravity, right? But as we'll see in this clip, N.T. Wright doesn't do that. He doesn't really follow what I would prescribe for him to do. So let's actually go to the clip here. This clip was kind of put together by Protestia, so you can find the entire clip of his answer because it's a fairly long, kind of meandering answer. But let's just go ahead and go to the clip here.
GP in that case, who was a devout Christian GP, said, we are going to do the tests, and if she has been exposed to rubella, if there's a threat of serious defamation or whatever, then we will recommend termination. And I remember my heart in my mouth when I heard that and thinking, do I really agree with that? But at the time, it was absolutely clear for the mental health, never mind anything else, of the mother and the potential father as well, that this was the way to go. In fact, there are many cases where it is about the mother's health versus the health of the child or whatever, and particularly that, as you cited, in cases of rape or in cases of incest, there may be a very, very strong argument for saying this ought never to have happened, and with sorrow, because we do not want to do this in principle, but with sorrow and a bit of shame, the best thing to do is as soon as possible to terminate this pregnancy. Now, I've seen the debates, I've read books about the debates as to at what point it's okay or at what point it becomes not okay. And I know that in my own country, people have pushed for the legislation to be allowed to say right up to the moment before the woman is ready to give birth, that if they decide for whatever reason on an abortion, then that's okay. And that I find not only wrong but repulsive, because if you wait till the child's been born and then say, well, we didn't really want a girl this time, so we'll just get rid of her, then that would be a criminal act, and quite rightly so. That would be murder, and it would be a pagan thing. This is something we must never forget, that in the ancient world, people regularly, when they had a child they didn't want, especially if it was a girl, in principle, this is not something which we should welcome. It is not something which we should collude with. At the same time, there may be certain exceptions, of which severe deformity might be one, of which certainly incest and rape would be others. And in those cases, I would say the sooner the better, because at a certain point, and I am not medically qualified to say at what point I would draw a line, then this is a viable human being that should then be cherished. So the whole debate about the woman's rights, it's very difficult. It's very hard for a man to talk about this. And indeed, one of the problems has been, particularly in the Roman Catholic Church, when women, particularly, say, a girl who's been raped or who's had incest committed on her, then discovering that unmarried men from the Catholic hierarchy are telling her what she can and can't do. You know, that's as people now say, the optics of that are pretty bad. That's part of the same system of male bullying, which we have to avoid like the plague. However, having said that, I do think that sense of respect for God's creation in all its rich variety is the primary starting point, even if we then have to say with sorrow and a certain sense of this is the least worst option in this situation, that there may be some cases of exceptions. That's about as far as I can get at the moment. And as I say, I'm very much aware of just how sensitive this topic is, politically, sociologically, as well as ethically.
All right, so there's a lot there, so we need to go ahead and break this down. So at the beginning, N.T. Wright talks about the hard case or a particular hard case that involved him, where the pregnant mother was potentially exposed to rubella, which could lead to issues for baby. It's not a guarantee, but it could. And he says that the supposedly Christian doctor in the situation was going to recommend termination if there was exposure. Okay. So Wright talks about how that caused him some consternation initially, but eventually and seemingly quickly, he came to the conclusion that it would be okay because of the mental health of the mother and the father as well. So this is part of the issue with people talking about health of the mother, right? Because they don't always say medical health or physical health of the mother. Sometimes moms may be sad if they're forced to carry this baby to term. In almost all cases, a baby that was created because of a consensual sexual encounter, right? But that's the same thing for babies that are outside the womb. My 5-year-old and 3-year-old caused me quite a bit of mental consternation. Should I be able to kill them, right? They affect my mental health negatively sometimes. Should I be able to kill them when I'm in one of those moments, right? He doesn't really deal with that, but he's just talking about mental health. But this can be extended out to emotional health, to financial health, right? So that's where the argument starts to unravel. Then he brings up the hard cases like rape and incest, which is kind of the new default mechanism for the pro-abortion crowd. That used to be like a last resort. Now it's like their first argument, right? Which kind of tells you about whether or not their position is actually strong, which means that it's not. And he says that there is a very, very strong argument for terminating the pregnancy. Okay, so terminating the pregnancy, that's a macabre euphemism, because this ought not to have happened. So essentially, according to him, since the circumstances of the conception were sinful and evil, we should add to the evil sin of the situation by killing the child. Like that's his idea. He said there's a very, very strong argument because it ought not have happened that way. That somehow if we kill the baby, it undoes the thing that ought not have happened, right? I mean, and the host clearly doesn't challenge him on this. You can go back and watch the entire thing. It's foolish, right? It literally doesn't follow at all. And again, he's using euphemisms like terminating the pregnancy. So typically that's like a trigger. If you hear someone say something like that, that's cause for concern. Excuse me. Then he makes a subtle but very egregious comment. Okay, again, it's very subtle. He states that with sorrow and a bit of shame, they should terminate the pregnancy. So there's two main problems here. The first one is this. If abortion is the moral and righteous choice in this situation, then why would it need to be accompanied with sorrow and shame? Like if I have a mosquito on my arm and I swat it and kill it or I flick it away, I don't do that with sorrow and shame. It's a morally neutral act, right? If I pick up this pin and then set it back down, I don't need to do that with sorrow and shame. It's a morally neutral act. So if abortion is righteous here, at best or even at worst morally neutral, why in the world would we need sorrow and shame, NT, right? And the second main problem is kind of what I talked about a second ago. He's a fan of saying terminate the pregnancy. When you say that phrase, it shows a complete disregard for the imago Dei, the image of God that is on the baby that's being destroyed. Oh, we're just terminating a pregnancy. What does that mean? What is being terminated? When we terminate a pregnancy, what ends? Right? It's the life of the child. That's what happens, right? If I get, a wart removed, right? A successful wart removal means that the wart is no longer on my body. When you terminate a pregnancy, you are terminating a human life. So the use of euphemisms is incredibly, incredibly dangerous and concerning here. Then he talks about how in cases of severe deformity, that it kind of brings up, rape and incest again, and that it would be okay in his view to kill those people. Because in his mind, if you're deformed or if you were conceived in sinful circumstances, then you're not worthy of life nor protection. Because ask any deformed person, guys, just go walk up to someone on the street that's got a clear deformity and just be like, wouldn't you rather be dead? I mean, this theologian thinks it's a better thing for you to be dead than to be physically deformed. Would you maybe be aghast if they were to respond to you like you're insane? Because I think people that are alive for the most part are glad that they're alive, right? Whether they're deformed or not. They're born, missing parts of their body, or they've got additional parts of their body, or something's gone wrong. I think they're still okay with being alive, though. Just call it a hunch. But then N.T. Wright gets to an argument that should prove to everyone that you can simultaneously be very, very smart and very, very dumb. He's arguing that abortion should take place as soon as possible, his words. Essentially, if the baby gets, bigger and bigger, that the abortion will feel more icky in his view. But then he makes this stunning admission, which literally, if he had any legs underneath him at this time, which he really doesn't, just chops those out entirely. He says this, and I'm quoting it directly. "I'm not medically qualified to say at what point I would draw a line. Then this is a viable human being that should be cherished." So follow me here. If you actually believe that, Mr. Wright, then wouldn't the cautious and moral way to operate be to err on the side of preserving life? You say, well, I'm not a doctor. I'm not qualified to say when human life begins. But that's settled science, sir. Do a quick Google search, even have ChatGPT help you, and it would let you know that life, a new human life, comes into existence at conception when a one-celled sperm cell meets with a one-celled egg cell and creates a one-celled zygote. In that moment, all of your DNA is present. The only place in the universe where DNA sprouts out of nowhere, miraculously, is in that moment. But you're saying, oh, we don't really know. I'm going to pilot this. I'm just going to wash my hands of it. I don't want to have any guilt here. But then you want to say, yeah, but we should go ahead and kill that baby. Well, you can't have it both ways, right? You can't have it both ways. He's trying to, but you can't. Then he just becomes this, slobbering, wimpy, emasculated coward, making, a derivative of the my body, my choice argument for the woman, essentially defending the argument that men shouldn't have an opinion on that and all these different things. And the major issue with that point of view, there's a lot of them. I'll just go quickly through them. Every conception involves a father that has rights to that child. So that's why abortion is a men's issue, a man's issue. Also, N.T. Wright and people that think like him are seemingly okay with the opinions of men that agree with their point of view, right? So they're okay with you having a point of view if you happen to be a male that agrees with them. Isn't that so interesting? And again, we're not talking about her body. We're talking about the body that is inside of her body. So again, he's arguing a point that no one's making. And then he essentially concludes his meandering, nonsensical ramblings on the topic by couching abortion as the least worst option in this situation. Which brings up a very important question for N.T. Wright and people that think like he does. What is the middle position on abortion? You've heard me pose a question like this before, right? What is the third way option on abortion? Do we only partially kill the baby? We just kill them during parts of the human development that don't make us feel funny on the inside? It's the same thing on the trans debate. Do we only cut off part of the 14-year-old's healthy breast tissue? Do we only cut off a chunk of the little boy's penis? Do we only give them stuff that's only going to partially medically sterilize them, right? So again, the least worst option in this situation, what are the options here? This is a binary thing. It's either morally abhorrent and we shouldn't do it, or it's completely acceptable. But he doesn't see it that way. So what can we surmise from these answers from N.T. Wright? The only thing that you can surmise from these answers is that he's pro-abortion. I mean, let me be clear. If you support abortion in any form, for any reason, and in any circumstance, then you're pro-abortion. Because that's how words work, right? If you were in support of it, even in 1% of the cases, or a fraction of 1% of the cases, then you're pro-it, right? It's not like, again, this is another binary thing. You're not partially pro-abortion and partially pro-life. You can't be on both teams. You can't have a foot in both camps. You have to pick one. So with some people, guys, and we've talked about this before, you can eat the meat and spit out the bones, but this is just a warning to all of us listening to this. Just because you like or support the work of a popular Christian author, podcaster, speaker, whatever, that doesn't mean that you should just mirror all of their worldviews and philosophies, okay? We still have to let the Word of God be our guide. And according to the Bible, life begins at conception, and we are never to take innocent human lives. Somebody should give the breaking news to NT Wright. Hey guys, real quick. I know a lot of you guys are really doing everything you can to have a consistent workout routine, but the problem is you work out at a Globo gym. And so there's 17 guys on the bench that you need, and there's people doing bicep curls on the squat rack. And the biggest problem is not your schedule. It's actually where you're trying to get your work in. How about you guys stop making excuses and build yourself a home gym? And when you do, make sure you use Sorinex. So Sorinex is a family-owned and operated business that builds some of the most impressive workout facilities in the entire world. They built gyms for teams in the NFL, MLB, NBA, NHL, and even the UFC. They've also built gyms for some of the biggest and most successful collegiate and high school athletic programs in the country. But in addition to that, they make the highest quality home gym products that I've ever seen on the market. In my personal home gym, I have the Sorinex Outfitter Rack, the heavy version in military green. Also, I have some of their center mass bells. I've got their Nordic glute ham developer and their patented landmine attached to my rack. So guys, stop fighting the riffraff at your local gym or bench or squat rack or whatever. And if you're going to build out a home gym, you may as well get one that will last you and one that you could even pass down to your kids. Begin your build out by going to Sorinex.com. That is Sorinex.com, Sorinex.com. Take control of where and when you work out, Sorinex.com. All right, guys, let's get to the quick hitters. This is our dumb Christian leaders section. So Pastor Josh Buice getting caught using burner accounts to talk trash about other Christian leaders. This is according to church leaders on May the 12th. Dr. Josh Buice, pastor of Praise Mill Baptist Church, PMBC, and founder of G3 Ministries, resigned as president of G3 Ministries after PMBC elders discovered Buice had been using multiple anonymous social media accounts to speak ill of Christian leaders, both publicly and privately. In a statement released by PMBC, the elders shared that they uncovered irrefutable evidence that Dr. Buice has, for the past 3 years, operated at least 4 anonymous social media accounts, 2 anonymous email addresses, and 2 Substack platforms. These accounts were used to publicly and anonymously slander numerous Christian leaders, including faithful pastors, some of whom have spoken at G3 conferences, several PMBC elders, and others, the statement continued. These actions were not only sinful in nature, but deeply divisive, causing unnecessary suspicion and strife within the body of Christ, and particularly within the eldership of PMBC. Although Buice told the elders that he believes he is presently disqualified to serve as the elder of PMBC, the elders told the congregation that they do not believe at this time that this sin is necessarily permanently disqualifying. For the time being, the elders have placed Buice on indefinite leave from the church until they are able to determine a more detailed path forward. I got to tell you this from the beginning. I was not a consumer of his content. I had heard the name before. I'd obviously heard of G3 enough to know that when it came across, my feed, I gave me pause or whatever, like, oh, I need to read this. But my goodness, what a gigantic slobbery coward, right? There are other words I have in mind, but really? You made burner accounts? Y'all remember when Kevin Durant did that back in the day? How he was just dragged for that? Creating burner accounts so that he could go back and forth with fans that didn't like his hero ball when he was playing on the Oklahoma City Thunder. Like, really? This was your best course of action? I don't like what these people are saying, so I'm going to create a doofus dork 1987, and I'm going to create this profile, and I'm going to flame them. Like, you're not just going to go to these men like a man and hash out any issues you have, right? I mean, because he had direct lines of communication with the people that he was trashing. Like, but he had no concept of how to do that. He literally hid behind his keyboard. You talk about keyboard warriors, that's this guy. Let's go to my big takeaway here. Sometimes pastors show you who they truly are, and perhaps we should believe them. So, I'm not saying that this guy is disqualified from ministry from the rest of his life. I don't know him personally. I'm not one of the elders of his church. I don't get to make that determination. But this is indicative of a deep-seated rot inside of this man. And this rot is directly tied to cowardice. And according to the writer of Hebrews, a pastor has to give an account someday for how he shepherded his flock. And the shepherd protects his sheep from the wolf. In this situation, I'm pretty sure he just proved that he doesn't have the stones to do that. Now, hopefully, we should all be praying that he becomes the man that his congregation requires and needs And if he doesn't, that he goes and does something else, drives a UPS truck or starts selling insurance or, becomes a cop. Well, a cop would be terrible because we need less cowards in that profession, not more. But he could just go do anything else. Just go do something else. You're just not going to be a pastor anymore. Okay? Disqualify yourself if you're going to do it that way. But again, someone that's not cowardly, someone that's not brave, that's not courageous, it's going to take an act of God to make that person courageous and brave. You know what I mean? And so to any members of that church, or if the elder board or any of those people are listening to this, my goodness, give the guy some time to prove himself, but do not allow him to ascend back to the pastorate, to behind the pulpit, or in any way, shape, or form be an elder on that church if he continues to prove that he, to the core of who he is a cowardly, weak little man. All right, next quick hitter here. Pacifist, social justice warrior, and left-wing activist Shane Claiborne being arrested. So if you're familiar with that name, and if you're looking at me right now and you see the grin on my face, it's probably because you watched me and him debate one time back in the day. So Justin Brierley reached out to me. I'd already been on his show before, Unbelievable, to do a debate. And he's like, hey, I got a guy coming on. He's a pacifist Christian. He wants to do a debate on Second Amendment stuff. Would you be interested in being on the other side of the debate? And I responded to Justin, I was like, yeah, that's like not even in the top 10 things that I talk about ever. But yeah, this is like the easiest thing in the world to defend. Why we should be able to defend ourselves with, firearms and different things that we choose to legally defend ourselves with. And so we do the debate. I'll put that in the show notes. And I just pants the guy, right? Like, because he has an non-defensible position. I even trapped him at one point, which I had planned for weeks. I trapped him with the scenario, which I've talked about on the show before, where, he's in his house, someone breaks in, he goes to look and he gets back to the bedroom and oops, there's his wife in bed and there's the bad guy. He's ready to kill her. What are you going to do? Well, I'm going to call the police. Well, they're in Philadelphia, so if they come at all, it's going to be a while before they get there. So now what are you going to do? And I just kind of kept pushing. And then he finally admitted that he would use physical force to try and stop the guy. And it's like, okay, well, you're going to be using your limp little wrists and he's going to be using a knife or a gun. My money's on him, right? And so he just looked foolish during the debate. It's a guy that has a very soft heart, but it's led to him having a very, very soft head as well. But this leads us to a report from church leaders on May the 6th. 5 faith leaders were arrested while praying at the U.S. Capitol Rotunda on Monday, May the 5th. The second time in as many weeks, clergy and others have been handcuffed as they speak out against the Republican-led budget bill. Among those arrested was Shane Claiborne, a longtime activist and co-director of Red Letter Christians, a Christian social justice group. Claiborne, who is based in Philadelphia and known for his long-standing opposition to the death penalty and gun violence, prayed side by side with others for several minutes in the Rotunda before eventually being arrested by Capitol Police. Reorder our moral compass, Claiborne said, standing near a statue commemorating famous suffragists and abolitionists. Stir the conscience of our nation. Let justice rise up these very steps. Let truth trouble the chambers of the Capitol. Let there be no peace where there is no justice. Let there be no comfort to those who legislate cruelty. So obviously Shane Claiborne is a guy that gets his, slogans and all that from the internet. So it's very awesome sounding. But basically, these people are looking at the budget bill, which hasn't even been passed yet, and they're saying, oh, this is going to make life harder for poor people, and it's going to take people off Medicaid, and it's going to do all these things that nobody that's currently in support of the bill is planning to let the bill have in it, okay? So it's partially a misunderstanding what the bill is going to do and what it's not going to do. But my big takeaway on this one is Shane Claiborne is a deeply unserious person. I think if you read any of his writings or listen to him talk on any of these issues, I think he fervently feels the way he feels about these issues, but he doesn't take a lot of time to think through the issues. But if he's not going to start thinking through the issues or really taking his research seriously, I hope he keeps doing dumb things like this. Because people are going to look at him, like his literally tens of fans are going to look at him and be like, is this really what we're supposed to be doing? Are you a Christian or are you an activist? Because he's basically just parroting everything left-wing activists parrot, but he's just wrapping it in Christianese and scripture that's taken out of context, right? And so for people like Shane Claiborne, we should primarily pray that they come to saving faith. I don't see any indication that he's not a Christian, but they should come to a realistic view of the world and what justice actually looks like. And if not, we should pray that they should double the amount of clown makeup that they wear so that we don't look to those people when we need wisdom, because those are people that are just not filled with it. All right, next one here. This is the abortion section. So a shocking dump of data showing the abortion pill is incredibly dangerous for the women that take it. This is according to Breitbart on April the 28th. While the abortion pill is touted as safe and effective, shocking new data suggests complications are 22 times higher than previously reported. A study from the Ethics and Public Policy Center released on Monday found that 10.93% of women who had mifepristone abortions, the first drug used in two-drug medication abortions regimen, experienced severe complications including sepsis infection, hemorrhaging, or another serious adverse event within 45 days following the abortion. This percentage is significantly higher than the less than 0.5% of clinical trials reported on the FDA-approved drug label. The study is the largest known study of the abortion pill, according to the authors, Ethics and Public Policy Center President Ryan T. Anderson and Director of Data Analysis and Fellow Jamie Bryan Hall. The study is based on analysis of data from an all-payer insurance claims database that includes 865,727 prescribed mifepristone abortions from 2017 to 2023, meaning the results of the study are based on real-world incidents. So let's go to a couple of big takeaways here. The first is there is a reason why the FDA and pro-abortion groups don't want you to know about this. Did you know about this? I bet you didn't. But there's a reason why they don't want you to know about it. It's because they know that the abortion pill is the future of their industry. They know it's the future. Because over half of the abortions in the United States now take place via the abortion pill. They're not surgical abortions. They are pill form. Okay? They're going to fight to make that 100% of abortions because this type of abortion isn't as icky. Let's go back to stuff I was saying with N.T. Wright. Why was he saying, let's terminate the pregnancy as quickly as possible? Because when it's in 8 weeks of fetal development and not 8 months of fetal development, it doesn't feel as bad. It's just this kind of like little thing that kind of looks human-esque or human-like, even though its DNA is all there, all of its major organs are there and functioning properly. It's currently dreaming. It recoils from pain, all those silly little things, right? But when it's 8 months of gestation, starting to look like a baby, right? Can live outside the womb with some assistance, but can live outside the womb, right? But this is the direction they want to go. Because if you're 4 weeks pregnant and you can just take a couple of pills, then no biggie, right? But the second big takeaway here on this is lost in all of this, how dangerous the pill is for the moms, which it clearly is how dangerous this pill is for the babies. Because the abortion pill regimen is over 95% effective in producing death. Over 95% effective. So as much as we should talk about stories like this loss in all of this, and it gets lost in a lot of the kerfuffle of the abortion topic, is the baby that can't defend itself. So let's actually keep this going because we're going to talk about the French scientist who invented the abortion pill dying at 98 years old. So this is according to National Right-to-Life on June the 3rd. Étienne-Émile Ballou, the French scientist who invented the abortion pill, died on Friday at his home in Paris. He was 98 years old. Ballou was instrumental in developing the drug RU486, which is mifepristone, the first drug of the two-drug abortion pill regimen, which is responsible for the deaths of millions of innocent preborn children around the world. Since its approval under the Clinton administration in 2000, the abortion pill has killed more than 5 million children in the United States alone. And according to the Pro-Abortion Guttmacher Institute, the abortion pill accounted for 63% of all U.S. abortions in 2023. So this man is directly responsible for helping to murder millions of human beings across the world. We will never know the exact statistics, but we're talking about tens of millions of babies around the world have been eradicated because of what this man created. Okay, so here's a little fun fact that I learned from another pro-lifer, Seth Gruber. So RU486, mifepristone, that stands for Roussel-Uclof. Okay, Roussel-Uclof, that's the RU, Roussel-Uclof. So Roussel-Uclof is a French pharmaceutical company that invented the abortion pill, right? That's who this guy worked for. So a majority shareholder of Roussel-Uclof is Hoechst AG. So Hoechst AG was the co-founder of a group called IG Farben. Now, considering that, most of you guys were several layers deep, you may not be familiar with that. But IG Farben is a German chemical and pharmaceutical conglomerate that became infamous for inventing a cyanide gas called Zyklon B. Now, that should sound familiar to you because Zyklon B was the gas used to kill the Jews in the Nazi death camps during the Holocaust. You see how all these satanic people are like connected? All these anti-human people, right? They're all connected. So my big takeaway on this one, I've been fairly consistent on these people, so I'll keep it going. I hope that this man accepted Christ before he died. I do. But if he did not, I hope he is currently burning in the hottest section of hell. All right, next quick hitter here. A teenager being sentenced to 35 years in prison for slitting the throat of her newborn baby son after a secret birth. This is according to the New York Post on April the 25th. A twisted Nebraska teen was handed a decades-long sentence Thursday for fatally slashing her newborn son's throat just moments after secretly giving birth in her childhood bedroom, according to reports. Chloe Copeland Anderson, 18, will spend the next 35 to 60 years behind bars after pleading no contest to second-degree murder for the heartless killing, according to the Nebraska Attorney General's office. Prosecutors said that the cold-hearted teen, who was 16 years old at the time, delivered the baby boy in secret at her Gordon home before retrieving a knife from the kitchen on November the 6th, 2023. The new mom, who hid her pregnancy from her parents, hurried back to her bedroom where she slit the just-born baby's throat, according to an arrest affidavit obtained by People. So obviously just an absolutely blood-curdling, horrific situation. So much here that we don't have answers to. How could a teenage girl hide a pregnancy for 9 months? No one heard the baby cry when it came out. And then her first idea was to grab a butcher's knife and slit the throat of a baby who had just gotten outside the womb. So big takeaway on this one. If this young lady had simply paid an assassin to do it, an abortion doctor, she would have been participating in the feminist fever dream of sex without consequences. Isn't that what happened here? There's no report that this girl was raped, and so she engaged in consensual sex, became pregnant as a part of that consensual sexual act. New life was magically and amazingly created, and her first thought when the baby was outside the womb is, I got to kill this thing. For what reason, we don't know, but probably for the same reasons that most women, kill their children, is because it's going to be an inconvenience, right? I mean, that's essentially what we're looking at. But what is the fundamental difference between what this girl did and what an abortionist would have done? So again, let's go to the exact same scenario. The morning that she's going to give birth to this baby boy. Let's say she goes to a clinic and has the baby killed in a late-term abortion. I assume she would get that done at a place where that is legal. And so a person that's pro-abortion is going to say that's okay, but they look aghast at a situation like this, like, how could a woman kill her newborn baby? Guys, it's the same baby. Its geographical location has changed, right? And so this is part of the seared conscience that we have collectively on this issue, is that people will hear about somebody getting an abortion, they're like, oh, that's just downright unfortunate. But then they hear about this girl that slits a baby's throat and they're like, oh my gosh, what a demon. Guys, it's the same thing. It's the same exact thing. All right, now we need to go to an old clip of a TV show that's going viral here in the last couple of weeks because it shows the callous evil of many women that are getting abortions. So this is a clip from a show called Girls. So let's actually go to the clip here.
No, I can't go for a run because I had an abortion yesterday. I can't go for a run and I can't take a bath or use a tampon or have intercourse for like a week.
Are you, what?
Yeah, just a couple of things I can't do because I had an abortion yesterday.
Was it mine?
Yeah, of course it was yours. I didn't want to talk about it beforehand. I just wanted to do it. But I haven't shared with boyfriends in the past. I'm trying to be more open with you.
So you're trying to be open with me. How many abortions have you had?
I'm not going to share that with you because that is private. I'm not going to ask you how many girls you've gotten pregnant.
None. It's not private. I've got no girls pregnant except for you now. fucking went with you?
My friend Sue Ellen Garth.
I don't even know her.
You'll meet her. She's a somnambulist.
Who did it? Who aborted you?
A doctor named Gunita did the procedure. She delivered my cousin's baby.
Was it a boy or a girl?
My cousin's baby's a girl.
No! Ours!
It was a ball of cells. It was smaller than a seed pearl. It didn't have a penis or a vagina.
Isn't this a decision that people typically make together?
So you wanted a baby?
Maybe.
That's kind of absurd. We've been together for less than 7 weeks. I don't think that we're ready for a child.
Crazier things have happened. People do crazy things. My parents got married after a fucking week.
Okay, so we should have the baby and put it in your toolbox as a cradle and feed it sardines and tell it that you don't know my middle name?
It's Rose!
No, my first name is Mimi Rose. My middle name is Eleanor.
I don't understand how you could do something like that without talking to me first. That's evil.
You're right, you don't understand.
All right, so a lot of things to talk about with that. That should produce quite a bit of emotion for you guys. But Planned Parenthood, believe it or not, they actually consulted on the script for this episode. Okay? So we can take that to mean that this entire scene was concocted to make the man look psychopathic and unhinged, right? Even though anyone operating with a functioning conscience can see that this woman is evil, she's psychopathic, and during this interaction, she's just an awful, awful person, right? And this is a situation that has happened. And let's just go to the big takeaways on this. I got a couple. First one. What this scene depicts is the majority of women that get abortions. Oh, that sounds so terrible and judgmental. It's true. Statistically speaking, almost 100% of abortions in this country take place because of reasons of inconvenience. The baby is inconvenient. I already have kids, I don't want more. Oh, I'm too young. Or I haven't finished school yet. Or I don't know who the dad is because I'm a whore. Or whatever the situation is, it's because it would be inconvenient on them to have the baby and care for the baby, right? An incredibly small percentage, again, life of the mother is not a real thing, but rape and incest, incredibly small percentage of abortions are listed for those reasons. Most women have bought the feminist lie that I'm going to spread my legs for any available dick and I'm going to take it. And if I get pregnant, no biggie. I'll just get it taken care of. I'll go have a surgical abortion, or I'll take the morning after pill, which is abortifacient, or I'm just going to take mifepristone, right? And follow that up with another pill that's going to expel the dead baby from my body, right? And they see no problem with this. Again, we get this idea from everyone that's pro-abortion and even a lot of pro-life people that most women getting abortions have no idea what they're doing. They have no idea, no clue. They don't know that that's an actual human being with a beating heart in there. They're just completely aloof to the entire situation. Like, do y'all honestly believe that? That they have no idea that there's another human being inside of them that's currently taking up space in the world, just so happens to be inside of their bodies? No. These are women that just don't care. They don't care that it's a baby. It doesn't make a single shred of difference to them. And the second thing here is fathers are almost completely forgotten in the abortion debate. Because again, this scene is meant to make the man look completely unhinged. Throwing stuff off the table, getting mad, yelling. Yeah. His progeny was murdered before he even knew the progeny was in existence. And as men, we are very, very innately focused on our progeny. That's why men get so emotional when they have a son. And that's not to denigrate men with daughters by any stretch of the imagination. But when you have a son, there's an innate sense and knowing that your name and your genes will continue on, right? And that's a very, very important combo for most men. But then men have no rights in this abortion debate for whatever reason. So these fathers, I've seen these absolutely horrific videos of men outside locked abortion facilities, banging on the windows and doors, screaming for their girlfriends or their wives or whoever to not kill their child. And that father has no recourse. They can't call the police. They can't file suit. They can't do anything. Now, there's some groups that are trying to change that, right? So there's a group in Texas that's trying to make it to where if your baby is killed against your will, desire, or knowledge, that you can sue the mother for murdering your child, which seems incredibly reasonable to me. But when we talk about the abortion topic, we got to remember that the fathers are certainly involved. Okay, let's get to the Pride Month section of the quick hitters here. Disney continuing to signal that they hate your values, but will take your money. So this was a post by Libs of TikTok on June the 1st. And so Landon, shout out to my editor. If you'll put up this picture real quick, bam, doing it live. So there you see it there in all its glory. So this is on the main homepage for Disney Plus, right? Immediately on June 1st, ready to go. Okay. But don't worry, parents. Disney's definitely not trying to corrupt your children by convincing them that sinful and abominable lifestyles are just normal. They're just love, right? They're not trying to do that. Big takeaway on this one. Parents, wake up. Stop giving money to companies that openly hate your values. I don't understand it. And I'm surrounded by people that think this way. Literally to this day, I have not heard a single good argument from a Christian conservative parent as to why it's okay to continue supporting Disney. And yet, as if compelled by some unstoppable force in the universe, these parents continue paying for Disney Plus, dropping thousands of dollars on Disney theme park and cruise trips, and they take the entire family to go see whatever new Disney movie is released in theaters. And some of these same families want to complain and lament about some of the nasty and nefarious things that Disney is doing as they fund it. I mean, seriously, what else does this company need to do to rub it in your face that they hate your Christian conservative values? Are they the only organization out there that has theme parks, that makes cartoons, that makes crappy, kid shows or whatever? Are they the only organization that can do it? Right? Here's the thing, guys. If you're going to be full of crap, at least be upfront. I mean, isn't that fair? Just be upfront with it. Just admit that you value the IP, right, the intellectual property of Disney above every other moral consideration. Right? Kyle, I get it, but I really like The Lion King, so I'm going to be pro-Disney until I die. Kyle, I understand this is crazy, but you know what? I have all those VHSs from when I was a kid, and I'm still living as if I'm 4 years old. Now, I would think that you're crazy for thinking that, but at least you'd be acting with at least a shred of intellectual honesty, right? But again, what does Disney have to do? We have on tape proof that someone working inside Disney was creating content with a not so gay agenda, or not so secret gay agenda, right? They're infusing it into the shows. Why? To make your kids think that that is okay. And you take them to church with you on Sunday, when it doesn't conflict with the travel baseball schedule or going to the lake, right? But you make sure you bring your kids to church with you on Sunday sometimes, and then you expect them to get a biblical sexual ethic. Like, parents, what are you doing? How moronic is this? How ignorant is this? Stop funding people that hate you. So let's move on to talk about Target. Target is currently pretending to be patriotic as opposed to worshiping at the altar of the LGBTQ plus community here. So this is according to TPUSA on June the 4th. Target has received positive attention from conservatives after customers noticed a significant reduction in its Pride Month displays at the start of June, with many stores instead prominently featuring USA-themed merchandise. While the retail chain still offers a Pride collection for 2025, its presence in stores appears notably smaller than in previous years. The shift comes after the company faced backlash in recent years over its prominent displays of LGBT-themed products, particularly those marketed to children. So, big takeaway on this one. I think Target's full of crap. I think if Kamala Harris had been elected president, those displays would be even bigger. But let's just see. Let's see if the tide is turning enough. Because above anything else, what these companies worship is money, right? Which they're companies. You try to create as much value for stakeholders and stockholders as possible. So, by all means, without completely screwing over the end user, let's go ahead and do that. Because I'm okay with a company saying, yeah, my bad. So let's take Bud Light. They did the Dylan Mulvaney can and all that, and the boycott. Let's say the Bud Light executive came out, did a press conference, said, yeah, you know what? We had a low-level staffer that thought it'd be a good idea to get this ridiculous little boy that's pretending to be a girl on a can, and that they would post about it, and that it'd be, a nice boon, and we'd have some, gay dudes and queers, they would get online and they would order some Bud Light, or they'd go to the store and get some Bud Light, or whatever the thing is. But gosh, that was such a stupid mistake. Like, this guy's a fool. He's a weirdo. Like, we should not have supported him like that. Our bad. We're just going to stick to making crappy beer in blue cans and doing funny commercials during the Super Bowl. Do you know how quickly the boycott would have ended? Some people would have hung on, but most people would have been like, yeah, that's okay. All right, I get it. You didn't run it up the chain, or it ran up the chain. You didn't think it would be that big of a deal. Blew up in your face. Hey, my bad. Target's not exactly doing that. They're throwing American flags in your face because they want you to be like, oh, hey, look, American flag, I'll buy that. So that they can hide the fact that they actually kind of believe this stuff. They believe, remember they were selling chest binders? So what chest binders are is they squash the healthy breasts of developing young ladies that feel like they're boys, right? They had like tuckable swimwear, right? So boys could like literally tuck their junk into their anus region and have it all held up by this special fabric inside of a swimsuit. That's who Target is. That's what they think is okay and appropriate. So if they continue to move away from this, is it feasible and reasonable to think, yeah, you should be able to go back to Target at some point? But at this point, I haven't been to Target in 3 or 4 years. And do you know how my quality of life has changed? None at all. Between Amazon and other stores. And yeah, no store, no company out there is going to have their hands completely clean. But most of them are shoving it in your face that they think it's hilarious that you would support them. So keep that in mind as you make your decisions. Also, let's get to the next one here. Me being even further validated with the Imane Khelif boxing controversy. So remember, there were 2 male boxers that were competing in the Paris Olympics. They beat up a bunch of women and won gold medals. This is a recent report, according to The Telegraph, via Yahoo Sports on June 4th. World Boxing has apologized for publicly announcing Imane Khelif would be banned from its events unless she, their words, could prove she, their words, was biologically female. The governing body has confirmed that its president, Boris van der Vorst, has written to the Algerian Boxing Federation acknowledging the athlete's privacy should have been protected when it revealed on Friday it was introducing mandatory sex testing for women fighters. The apology was made after the leaking of a medical report that appeared to indicate Olympic welterweight champion Khelif was biologically male. Big takeaway on this one. We're not going to spend a lot of time. I was right. Y'all knew I was going to be right. This was the most obvious story on the planet Earth. These people were wrong. But never forget this. The left are the ones that celebrated men beating up women. It was leftists and Democrats that were all for Imane Khelif going into the women's division and beating the brakes off these women and giving them brain damage. They're all for it. So when they try to moderate going into the midterms, when they try to present someone to you for the 2028 election that seems more moderate, remember, this is the exact type of thing that they would support. Next quick hitter here, Oklahoma's new law allowing for the death penalty for first-time child sex offenders. So this is according to my hometown news station, the KSWAO news station there in Lawton, Oklahoma, on May the 28th. Governor Kevin Stitt recently signed Senate Bill 599, which puts the death penalty on the table for first-time child sex offenders, and also life in prison is going to be on the docket as well. So big takeaway here, amen and amen. Like, obviously, because people are like, oh, it's just their first time. Okay, their first time doing what? Yeah, go, okay, say it into my good ear. Their first time doing what? Oh, sexually molesting a child? Violently penetrating a child? It was just their first time? I'm sorry, but I think we can agree that that's one of the crimes that categorically we can say means that you're no longer part of the gene pool. Okay? And I've said this before, and I still believe it. I think these people should be executed publicly. Like, what's the argument against executing these people publicly? Like, we do it behind closed doors. We do lethal injections for the most part. We don't do firing squads or electric chairs or anything like that for the most part anymore. And so these people just kind of like, they existed and then they just disappeared, right? Fart in the wind. But how about we get into the town square, right? And we just do it publicly, just like they did in the old days. Hey, if you're going to do this to kids, if you're thinking about this, or if you've been doing this, you should probably stop or not do it. Why? Pull the handle. Snap. That's why. Because if you do this to kids, we're going to kill you for it. Right? That's what a righteous, moral magistrate would do. Again, I don't see the argument against it. All right, next quick hitter here. President Trump making nice with a bona fide terrorist. This is according to the Associated Press on May the 14th. President Donald Trump's announcement that the U.S. will ease sanctions on Syria could eventually facilitate the country's recovery from years of civil war and transform the lives of everyday Syrians. Interim Syrian President Ahmad al-Shara, who led the insurgency that ousted President Bashar al-Assad, had urged the sanctions have outlived their purpose and are now only harming the Syrian people and ultimately preventing the country from any prospect of recovery. Trump and al-Shara met Wednesday. Okay, so big takeaway on this one. I hate that Donald Trump did this. Okay? I'm a big Donald Trump fan. I'm glad he won the presidency. All the things, right? I hate that he did this. Okay? This interim Syrian president, Ahmad al-Shara, let me tell you about this fella. Okay? Bashar al-Assad, he was the guy that was in power for decades. He was overthrown in December of 2024 by opposition forces. The main opposition force was Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. That's HTS, okay? That's a group of Sunni Muslim terrorists, which is, Turkish-backed. And HTS was founded by a guy named Abu Muhammad al-Jawlani, or as the media is calling him now, Ahmad Hussein al-Shara, okay? So a terrorist leader ousted Bashar al-Assad, who's an evil dictator, and this is the guy that Trump met with. So HTS evolved out of Jabhat al-Nusra, which is formerly a part of al-Qaeda in Syria. They quickly captured, key Syrian cities and ended up, encircling Damascus. This caused Assad to flee to Syria, or flee from Syria to Russia for asylum. There's going to be a whole lot more that happens because, Assad is not just going to go retire now somewhere in Russia. So this led to al-Jawlani or al-Shara's rising. He is a jihadist leader of HTS, okay? But he takes off his military garb, right? He trims his beard, he throws on a suit, and he just gets to go and meet with the president. Like, guys, think about this. I need you to get this optic in your brain. Let's say this is before September the 11th of 2001. This would have been like George W. Bush welcoming Osama bin Laden to the White House. Again, before 9/11, bin Laden was just a guy doing crazy terrorist stuff, Again, he was trying to do a bunch of stuff here and there was other bombings and stuff like that, but that's essentially what this would be like. For all you super MAGA, no matter what Trump people, why did he do this? What is the benefit here? I don't quite understand it. This is a bona fide, currently practicing terrorist that he had in the White House. And then after the meeting, he was so impressed with the guy, he relieved sanctions on Syria, a terrorist country. Again, I want to call balls and strikes. This is one of the most egregious things that Trump has done so far as president. I've agreed with a ton of the stuff that he's done. He's doing exactly what I voted for, but this is absolutely egregious. Okay, now we need to get to a couple things before we let you go. About a month ago, I saw all these memes and all these think pieces about what would happen if 100 men were to fight one silverback gorilla. This was on everybody's lips, right? This was a cultural phenomenon. The number of AI videos that were made of these, amoeba-like men going and taking on the silverback gorilla. And almost everyone's answers were the exact same. The gorilla, for sure. The gorilla's going to kill all 100 of those people. That's what all the AI models showed, is that this gorilla was just going to mow down all these dudes. And I felt like I was the only person that disagreed. But as is true almost all the time, no sarcasm here, I'm always right, guys, obviously, right? Wink, wink. I'm always right. So I'm going to explain to you slowly exactly what would happen if 100 men fought one silverback gorilla. The men win. The men will win. And here are the reasons why. Reason number one, human men can devise a plan. The gorilla cannot. The gorilla can only react. The gorilla is dancing to its DNA. It's not going to devise a plan. It's not going to know that it's about to fight 100 men. Because those 100 men in this scenario, they are told, hey, you got to fight and kill that gorilla or it's going to kill all of you guys. The gorilla doesn't know. The gorilla's just being a gorilla, right? So we can devise a plan. That's one thing we have up on the gorilla. Number two, with 100 men, there are enough men, I'm including myself in that, there's enough of us to outlast a single animal, okay? So in this scenario, men are 100% going to die, for sure. But 100 men aren't going to get killed before one gorilla is. And here's the third thing. Everyone's talking about the strength capacity of a gorilla. If a gorilla could bench press, it could bench press this much. If a gorilla could deadlift, it would deadlift this much. A gorilla literally has the power in its jaw to rip your face off while it's simultaneously pulling your arms off your body and beating you to death with it. Okay, let's say I give you that. You know what no one's talking about? The cardiovascular capability of a gorilla. And you know what? It's essentially non-existent. Because here's what we do know about gorillas. They have enormous hearts, which support intense anaerobic output. What is anaerobic output? Quick surges of energy, right? So when you're deadlifting, doing a max deadlift, that's anaerobic. It's lock it out, right? Quick surge of energy, okay? You know, gorillas also have low VO2 max. That essentially means they can't sustain output. They don't have endurance. And also they have fast twitch muscle fibers. So they burn hot, but they burn fast, right? That's why a guy like Usain Bolt is going to win the 100 and the 200, but he's not going to win a marathon, right? He just can't sustain that speed or any type of speed for that length of time. It's just not the body that he has. So I have no idea why people spent so much time on this, because it became readily apparent and obvious to me immediately. Because people are like, well, if it's 100 American men, what if they're fat? What if they're out of shape? All that. I'm telling you what, even in a random grouping of 100 adult males in America, there's going to be at least 25, 30 of us that are ready to get down, that aren't complete morons. We're destroying that stupid gorilla, okay? Now, if you stuck with me this long into the podcast, we're well over an hour into this at this point, but I made you a promise at the beginning of this episode. I promised you an M. Night Shyamalan twist to the end of this episode, and I'm going to give it to you. Guys, I've been dead this entire time. That's right. This is my own version of the Sixth Sense. I've been dead this entire episode. This technically wasn't even happening, because a couple of weeks ago, I got a very concerned email from a fan who I had been emailing with earlier that day. He sent me a screenshot from his phone of the results generated by Google AI after he Googled Kyle Thompson Undaunted.Life. So when he Googled Kyle Thompson Undaunted.Life, this is what the AI overview said. Kyle Thompson was a U.S. Army Special Forces officer who died in a tragic weightlifting accident. He was a prominent figure on the Undaunted.Life podcast, where he discussed various topics, including personal family tragedies and how Christian men should deal with loss. Thompson's death occurred when a barbell slipped from his grasp while he was bench pressing 315 pounds, crushing his neck. Guys, I'm so sorry. This is obviously very, very sad news for any and all of you that count yourselves amongst fans of Kyle Thompson and Undaunted.Life. And I'm very sorry for your loss. That is, except for a few pesky little things. Number one, I've never served in the military, much less been a Green Beret, much less been a Green Beret officer. Number two, I've never dropped a bar while benching, and if my friends found me dead after benching, they would have the decency to put a few more plates on either side to say I was really getting after it. Number three, I'm still very much alive. Most of you are going to be excited about that. Some of you are going to be disappointed, but here I am. I am alive and well. I have no idea what Google AI has against your boy. No idea whatsoever. But if anybody works at Google that's listening to this still, maybe hook a brother up. I'd like to still be alive. And that'll do it for today. But guys, before you go, we're going to do a quick resilience boost. At Undaunted.Life, our mission is equipping you to push back darkness with content that forges spiritual, mental, and physical resilience. So again, we are a donation-based ministry. Please donate to our ministry. Also, apply for the Dominion program on Undaunted.Life/Dominion. Buy your tickets for the Church 1122 Men's Conference. And then I've got all the links to everything I talked about in today's episode. Thank you for listening to this podcast. Wherever you're listening to this, please subscribe, rate, and leave us a positive 5-star review. If you want me to come speak live at your event or on your podcast, just shoot me an email to info@Undaunted.Life. That's info@Undaunted.Life. Follow us on Instagram and like us on Facebook, and check out our website for everything else, including how to donate to keep more content like this coming your way. Just go to www.Undaunted.Life. And as always, we want to thank the band Holy Name for allowing us to use their music for our content. The music on this podcast is their song Perpetua, which is off their self-titled debut album on Face Down Records. The links are in the description. I'm your host, Kyle Thompson. Remember, keep pushing back darkness, keep forging spiritual, mental, and physical resilience, keep seeking the Lion of Judah.